Have you ever wondered what happens on a movie set when someone gets hurt or injured? Who's responsible? Who gets the finger pointed at them? Who's responsible for damages when things occur? Let's dive into a couple of high-profile examples of what goes on when situations like this occur. We'll first start with Harry Potter, and then end up with, back here in the States, with what's going on with Alec Baldwin. So David Holmes was the stunt double for Harry Potter. He was performing a stunt when something went really wrong.
Being a stuntman is the best job in the world.
Take one.
You're constantly being tested, just risking it all. I used to fly. Nothing's like it, man.
In 2009, when you were filming Deathly Hallows, obviously that was a day that changed your life forever.
Yeah, my chest folded into my nose, my sternum winded me and my spinal cord separated. I landed on a crash mat and was paralysed from that moment on. My stunt coordinator went and grabbed my hand and said, squeeze my fingers. Realised I'd lost finger function. At the time I had 2 arms, unfortunately. I've had some problems with my injury, so I've lost one of them. But I couldn't squeeze Greg's hand. I'd broken enough bones in my career and as a gymnast to know that this was a very big injury.
And what was the injury that you had sustained?
So I had separated my C7 vertebrae, so C6, C7. So 2 parts of my spinal cord in the clavicle region, this part of my neck, was dislocated. And so as that dislocated, it caused massive amount of bruising in my spinal cord, which killed the nerve fibers.
David Holmes is a very interesting man. Despite having this injury that's going to follow him for the rest of his life, and the fact that he's never going to walk again, he has a major lawsuit against whoever did wrong that day. But he has chosen not to file a lawsuit. But let's talk about what his options would have been had he chose to go ahead and file that lawsuit. In a situation like this where someone has suffered such a devastating injury as what David suffered, you would have a claim of negligence against whoever that wrongdoer was. So let's talk about that just a little bit. One of the first things I'm going to do in a situation like that is figure out who was involved in this circumstance. Was there a product that went wrong? Did an instrumentality fail? Were people properly trained to deal with this situation? Was it properly staged? Did they account for issues in case something went wrong? You have to look at all these circumstances to see who screwed up. Because what's not supposed to happen on a movie scene is you're not supposed to be paralyzed for life when something goes wrong. And someone needs to be looking out and addressing those issues. And if they've done something wrong, they need to be held accountable. Now, one of the other things you're going to do as a plaintiff's attorney in this situation is you're going to sue everybody that you believe is potentially responsible. And you do that because you want to cover all your bases. You want to be able to propound discovery against all the parties involved. To ask questions, what did you do? What was your responsibility? What was going on there? To find out what the situation and circumstances were. And to make sure that your client gets the recovery that they're entitled to. Because let's face it, Mr. Holmes, how much money is that worth for you not to be able to ever walk again? Or pick up your children again? Or use the restroom without someone else's help? What is that value on something like that? And so that's why lawyers have to do the ugly job of asking these questions, finding out who's responsible, and then figuring out the amount of compensation that you're entitled to and should get in case something like this happens to you. So someone asked me about, well, what if David Holmes decides to change his mind and move forward with litigation later? Well, he has a prescribed timeline with which he has to make a decision. It's called statute of limitations. Typically, in many states, it's going to vary from state to state. In most states, it's from typically between 2 and 4 years. So you've got that time from the time of the accident until the time you decide to file a lawsuit. You've got that period of time within that statute to bring your litigation claim forward and file it. If you don't bring your claim forward and file your claim before that statute of limitations has run, then you're going to be barred from any type of recovery if you file it even 1 day after the running of that statute. So it's really important when you hear these lawyers talking about, hey, it's really important, get on it, make a decision quickly. you do it because you want to preserve the evidence, you want to talk to the witnesses, you want to get information, and most importantly, you want to make sure that your action is filed timely so you can get the compensation for your client that they deserve. So the Holmes situation was a circumstance where he decided not to file a lawsuit. So let's talk about another one where you have another very devastating injury where the family did decide to move forward with litigation. So let's talk about Halyna Hutchins, a young lady that was working on an Alec Baldwin movie called Rust.
You were in the room when someone was shot?
Holding the gun, yeah.
Okay.
A rehearsal that went terribly wrong. Alec Baldwin had been getting ready for a scene during filming for the Western movie Rust in New Mexico when a pistol he was holding went off, killing 42-year-old cinematographer Halyna Hutchins and wounding the director Joel Souza. Mr. Baldwin has always claimed he was not responsible for her death, saying he was told the gun did not contain any live rounds.
I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them, never. Never. That was the training that I had. You don't point a gun at me and pull the trigger.
He was first charged over a year ago, but the charges were dismissed when new evidence emerged that the gun may have been able to be fired without the trigger being pulled. But following a new forensic report, a grand jury has now concluded he should face trial, accused of involuntary manslaughter. The movie's armourer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, is also facing the same charge. The film Rust was completed in Halyna Hutchins' memory following her death. Her family have welcomed the prospect of criminal trials, saying they've always wanted the truth about what happened that day. If convicted, Alec Baldwin could face up to 18 months in prison.
The one thing I knew was going to happen right from the beginning, the civil lawsuits. A woman is dead. She is gone. She is no longer coming home to her family. So you know someone has to pay for that. So we know that the civil litigation would be coming. And what typically happens is the family or the estate of the family, that's the one who's going to be bringing forward this lawsuit, is going to sue any and everyone who's involved in this process. From Alec Baldwin, to the production companies, to the movie companies, to the training companies. One of the defendants has already settled, someone who was providing medical help and assistance after she got shot on scene.
A partial settlement is awarded to the medic on the Rust movie set after a deadly shooting. A judge awarded her more than $1 million after she tried to save the life of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. Hutchins was shot and killed when a prop gun held by Alec Baldwin discharged. The medic says the prop master and weapons supervisor failed to make sure there were no live rounds in the gun, and the shock has made her unable to work. Baldwin was dismissed of involuntary manslaughter charges last month. A similar charge against the weapons supervisor is still pending.
Part of the settlement has been resolved. From the attorney's perspective, now I've got the money to bankroll the litigation to go get these other defendants for a lot more money. So you're going to see, in my opinion, in this situation, and it hasn't unfolded just yet, a multi-million-dollar settlement in this case without any question. This case is not going to get tried. Why is it not going to get tried? Because the result of a verdict of this nature, how much is somebody's life worth, right? And I'm telling you, out there on the movie set, in a situation like this, you could be looking at a 10, 20, $100 million verdict. And there's no way the plaintiffs are going to take that type of a risk. And you will see the other plaintiffs in this case get settled out. Now, what's really interesting is that while I knew the civil part was going to unfold, and it's going to unfold similarly to what I just said over time, you'll see, I've been doing this for 24 years. What is really unusual here is you've got Alec Baldwin, an A-list actor who's been charged criminally in this accident. And we're not talking about some type of a misdemeanor or something that's minor. He's been charged with involuntary manslaughter. So what does that mean? That means that if he gets convicted of this charge, his ass is going to prison for possibly a very long time. That is very unusual. And what's also more unusual, these charges just got filed on January the 19th. What is going on here? We're going to be keeping a close eye on this litigation to see what the situation is, because this is highly irregular. Accidents happen all the time, especially on movie sets, where people get injured and damaged and sometimes killed. Are we now going to see a trend of people getting held criminally liable or responsible for their actions on the set of movies? I don't know. Let's watch closely and see what happens with this one. Could be very interesting. So hopefully these two stories have given you a little bit of insight as to what goes on the movie set when things go terribly wrong. Give us your thoughts, give us your input. Let us know, did we hit the mark on this one? Or did we screw it up too? I'm attorney Darren Miller, and this is DLAW.